So ignore my shitty commentary. I'm working on it. So this is the beginning level of Cloudbuilt. A couple of things that make it interesting. This is the only level in the game that does not contain the jetpack. It's basically just here to introduce you to the basic movement mechanics and allow you to kind of get used to how Demi interacts with walls and the way she grabs onto ledges and that kind of thing without complicating things with the jetpack that is the core of this game's movement system. One interesting thing about this level is how many shortcuts and such are actually present. There's 2 Easter eggs and a myriad of different paths you can take. Some slow, some fast. A lot of attention was paid to that level, and it clearly shows. So this is the first level of the game where you get to actually use the jetpack. The jetpack has 2 main abilities, a horizontal dash and a vertical jump. Those are triggered by pressing, for the dash, pressing shift in a direction, or for the jump, pressing space while in the air. You'll do an upwards jump, or an upwards boost. The jump costs 33 energy, and the dash costs 25. One combo you're going to see me using a lot is called the either dash jump or shift space combo, depending on how you want to refer to it. It is basically while in the air, you dash, and then as soon as possible afterwards do a jump, and it'll combo them together, costing only 44 total energy, meaning you can do 2 of those combos. And it also gives you a lot of horizontal distance, as well as vertical height. It's just a very efficient method of getting around, and you'll notice that's used pretty much every combo in the game. Now you might notice, based on the energy that I just told you everything costs, it seems like I did way too many jumps right there. And that is because you might have noticed that I sat there charging up for a little while. And if you hold down shift, it will basically charge up a dash for you, causing it to cost 0 energy. Basically what this means is we can slip in one more dash jump combo, and it gives us a lot of additional height, but it's only very useful when you have a ramp or something that will direct your momentum upwards. Now later on I'll show you a way that we can basically create ramps anywhere we want to in order to basically just destroy the game from the inside out. Now another important feature of this game, you might have noticed me already using, is the charge jump. Every bullet that Demi has in this game has some form of knockback on it. There are 3 tiers of the charge shot. So it starts off at yellow, it does the least damage, has basically no knockback. Goes up to green, a little more knockback, a little more damage, and then blue, which is the one we use for all of our impressive jumps. You might notice that I'm basically always carrying around a charged up shot, even when I don't really need one, and that's because there's absolutely no reason not to. If I were to make a mistake, it would be much easier to recover if I had all my tools available, including a charge shot. So this level in particular I think is very interesting because of this jump right here. Now you might notice I'm always looking over Demi's right shoulder, but you have to switch to the left shoulder in order to make this jump, because I need to fire my charge shot on this ground, and this is causing me to face away from the ramp where I need to go. So in order to make that jump, you have to switch which shoulder you're looking over. Otherwise the jump is actually impossible. And then Cloudbuilt's actually nice enough to switch me back to the right shoulder when I start the next level, which I always appreciated, but would probably find really annoying if I enjoyed playing over the left shoulder. A good general rule of thumb when it comes to playing Cloudbuilt is that you want to get to whatever ramp on the level. If there's a ramp on the level, you want to get to it as fast as physically possible. And you'll see that that pretty much holds true throughout the entire game, because ramps are so powerful. And they're usually pointed in the general direction of the goal. Ooh, this is probably my favorite level in the game. There are these little disc-shaped enemies that really only have the one job. They're called keepers, and they're just supposed to keep you out of places. And they're terrible at their job. I'm just going to land right on top of this one and skip basically half the level. So, thanks for that, Gafgar. Really appreciate you making these circular discs have a square hitboxes. Now here is where we get into the more interesting routes. Well, this route's actually very simple, but the only reason it exists is because Coilworks, the development studio, couldn't stand to have their levels look bland. So they put all these nice little decorative ramps. Unfortunately, one of them is pointed at the ramp that leads to the finish line. So I am just going to use that little ramp to jump up to this big ramp to jump directly to the finish line. So here, you might have heard me talk about earlier a way that we can basically create ramps wherever we need them. And that's using something called a corner jump. So basically how this works is that by standing as far away from the platform as possible before I execute my jump, before I execute my jump, the game basically treats the wall like a ramp. And the reason it does that is because Demi's collider is a cylinder, or is oh my god, it's capsule. It's capsule collider. That's the words I was looking for. And what that means is it basically tricks the game into thinking that I don't want to word that. A second. Because Demi's collider is a capsule, the bottom is rounded. And when that rounded edge hits the corner of the platform, it directs all that horizontal momentum I just applied vertically, giving me a massive height boost, and basically turning every single corner in the game into a ramp. That's what we call them, the corner jumps. And they really do just absolutely destroy some levels. Basically any route that I do here could have been done with corner jumps. I just tend to use them a little bit less because I don't think they're that visually interesting. I don't know, I'm kind of running out of things to talk about. I suppose I need to start talking about the individual levels now, because I'm out of like big broad topics that I want to cover. Alright, so this is probably one of the shortest levels in the game. The reason this level is so short and so easy is because it doesn't have a lot of verticality, and Demi is very, very good at moving horizontally. So since there's just not a lot of vertical movement, Demi can get to the finish line very quickly by covering a lot of horizontal distance and cutting corners in between different routes. Here is one where you'll get to see the true power of the corner jump. This used to be a fairly long, mildly difficult level, but because of this corner jump here, and then this charge shot jump here, I'm already at the finish line, skipping probably 80 to 85% of the level. It's honestly kind of silly. So stability here. This is probably my favorite level in the original 22. And that is because this is a very, very long and surprisingly shortcut-proof level. There are a couple of jumps that are very difficult to pull off that you can do in individual level runs, but none that are so consistent that you can really trust them in Marathon, which is always very interesting. So you've got to strike a good balance between wanting to use the most powerful routes to get the best times, and between not dying 100 times in each level. You might also notice that a lot of times when I hit a checkpoint, I'm restarting. And that's because, while in the base game, I would have received a 3-second penalty on my time. That's not true in level rush mode. And since we're doing an RTA, I just want to get through as fast as possible, and restarting gives me full energy to work with. So for individual levels, that's not really a feasible idea if you want to get high on the leaderboards. But for RTA strats, perfect. Oh. I just think that ending looks good. So this level is an absolute mess. This is, I think it was Coilworks benchmark to see how many cubes they could throw into one levels before the game crashed. So everything is basically just a mess of cubes and tight spaces filled with drone hives, which is always just so much fun. It took us a very long time after this level came out to find an efficient route through this mess. Now that's not to say that I don't enjoy this level, I do. It just was not very fun to route for. And I would say as far as level design goes, it's probably one of the weaker levels in the game. Because this game has phenomenal level design overall. So this was a level that the developers wanted to use for a couple of promo pictures to advertise the game. And then they came back and they realized, the lighting actually doesn't look that good. So you might notice that the lighting on this level looks a lot more detailed and intricate than a lot of other levels in the game. And that's because they went back and made it look much more menacing. Alright, we're into the final 4 levels here. The game has 4 branches total. And so we're on the last level of each branch. These are generally considered to be the 4 hardest levels in the game. So hopefully I can make them look really easy for you, otherwise it's going to be super embarrassing for me. This is probably the shortest of the 4. I think the developer Gafgar tried to order them in terms of difficulty when it came to which branch you played when. This is probably the easiest of the 4. Although now that I think about it, this level is probably significant. This level is actually definitely significantly harder than the next one. This is another level where decorations get you in trouble. The artists over at Coilworks, their heart was in the right place. But man, is that jump right there super overpowered. That's not even really the one that requires the decorations. That's just kind of unfortunate. But the one coming up in a second is really good. So here, there is a lot of enemies and stuff I want to avoid in there. So in order to avoid it, I'm just going to go onto the roof. And just so you know, it is more efficient to wait for nearly full energy before you start boosting along that roof. That way you don't get as much slowdown. So here is the point where decorations get you in trouble. So they threw around all these nice cubes to make everything look nice and like just fits their general aesthetic. But this one, unfortunately, is pointed directly at the goal. So I'm going to use it to jump all the way to here, skipping basically the hardest part of the level. Oh, that's embarrassing. Whoopsie daisies. So what I used there was called a pathfinding trick. There's a game mode in this game called Pathfinder, where you're not measured on time, you're actually measured on how much energy you use to complete the level. And so Pathfinder tricks are the tools and techniques that we use to traverse walls and such without using any energy. And they're very useful in RTA when you make some kind of mistake and you don't have the energy to get where you need to go and you don't want to restart. They're very good for recovering. And they make potentially disastrous mistakes way more manageable. Basically how that's done is you hold space on the wall, causing Demi to grip onto the wall. Then you jump off, fire the bullet below you, and then press forward onto the wall again, and Demi will run up it a little bit. Wow, that actually hit me. I didn't think I could make that jump. Oh man, I never set a checkpoint. Whoopsies. Man, mistakes are made. That was a 30-second mistake. Phew. The choking is real. Now the big problem with corner jumps is actually setting them up. So as you might have noticed, I wasn't quite as far back on that one as I should have been. And as a result, my jump was terrible. If you don't set the corner jumps quite right, and it can be very difficult to tell if your corner jump is set up right. then you will lose a lot of time by making a mistake and not being able to get the height you need. This is another case of just like a level that was supposed to be super difficult having a super easy skip towards the end, allowing you to skip most of the level. Alright, so this is the final level of the game. It is generally considered the hardest, and definitely for new players it's the hardest. For speedrunners it's actually not that bad. But there's a specific segment at the end of this level called the Death Spiral. And it is where new players go to die. It took me probably 2 weeks to clear it the first time when I was going through this game, my first time around. It is horrifically difficult, specifically because of this portion right here. They basically throw you into a tunnel and then just throw enemies at you. Fortunately, I have become skilled enough that I can just jump directly over the enemies, but having to go through that mess, actually quite difficult. Cool. I should have been looking